throughout the centuries of humanity, whenever there's a disaster and people's homes, houses, mansions, or whatever are destroyed and they're displaced, it has always been homeless. Always has been homeless. And you find that in the Bible. Two, when homelessness, or whatever you want to call it, the lowest level of poverty, manifestation of poverty, began to appear in the news in 1984 when they removed the homeless from the Olympic area, claiming that they are mentally ill. Mentally ill. I kind of fell for that when I first came out on purpose to live with these folks. I kind of fell for that mental ill thing until I even started questioning my own sanity. And I did it one time on television. I questioned my own sanity. And I was so stupid because I got caught up in the political correct speech. And so, but through observing and taking action, I learned that that's a ruse. It's a ruse to get rid of us. The ACLU started this mess back in the 60s. They began to advocate that all hospitals, mental hospitals, could be that they release mentally ill, so-called mentally ill people who are not a harm to themselves, anybody else, release them to the streets. Well, they finally got their victory under Ronald Reagan when they forced Reagan to sign that into an executive order. And so the mentally ill hit the streets. Now, before the mentally ill hit the streets, you always had the homeless. They were out there somewhere, camping out, trying to be out of sight. Homeless people in this, whatever you want to call them, were not trying to be seen. The only ones that society and the news were seeing were the literally clinical mental ill people, eating out of garbage cans, talking, you know the scene. And they associated what they saw with people who living in boxes and tents and cardboard boxes as mentally ill. They lumped us all up into one group. Now the danger, and that is not true. I believe the majority of people out there, 98%, are not mentally ill. Maybe 1% are clinically mentally ill. But the people you see out there right now, they are emotionally distressed. Yes. They have issues. Yes. So would you if you fail from where you were trying to struggle to keep your act together, maintain your mindset and attitude, and you end up on the freaking sidewalks. Yes, you're upset. Yes, you're depressed. Yes, you're angry. And you find hope in the social services, believing, oh, they're going to help me get out, so let me go to the program. And they go to the program, and after they get to the program, there's no place for them to go. What few get across the gulf between homelessness and being back in the so-called mainstream, what few get there, most of them come back. Because the same elements that drove them into the streets in the first place remain, if not worse, by the time they make their way back. So after trying several times to get back in, human nature says, I will adapt to my environment. And when these folks adapted to the environment, they realized, damn, I'm free. I am free. I don't have to worry about alimony, child support, debts, bills, owing cousin so-and-so $1,000. I ain't got to worry about that no more. In fact, I'm going to act crazy so I get my SSI. I'm good. And so what it turns out to be to most onlookers, what you see is misery. But within that misery, these people have found tranquility. And I've often said, I can take you somewhere in Beverly Hills, wherever, a man in a mansion, and I'll show you a homeless man. And I can take you a man down on the sidewalk of Skid Row or Venice Beach, I'll show you a man at home. See, because we think, and this comes out of the White House. It comes out of the White House in 1987, when the U.S. Congress passed the Stuart B. McKinney, eventually Vento, Congressional Homeless Assistance Act. When they did that, the policies of usage, the act, they created the entity within the White House called the U.S. Interagency Council on the Homeless, usage. that's comprised of all 19 federal departments. I think I told you all this before. The point is they make the policies. And their number one policies, which came from the socialist activists, the communists, the ACLU people, said housing first model. Housing first model. And it caught on. And that's why Trump, 38 years later, fired the usage, sent the staff home, got rid of everybody, and defunded it. He couldn't kill it because only Congress can kill it, and Congress' next time to vote on its existence is in October the 1st, 2028, ironically, 3 or 4 months after the 2028 LA Olympics, and I find that very significant. I almost got caught up in the political correct speech of people of color. It sounds so cool, but it wasn't. It wasn't, because that was designed as a socialist design, the mentality, and they knew it was wrong. They knew it was wrong, but they convinced the White House housing first. And out of those policies of housing first came all of the requirements, the ideology to get funding from HUD or funding from the Health and Human Services or from the Veterans Administration or whatever you want to get funding for the homeless or the houses, whatever you call them. You've got to go by the policy that you should set. So every social service, my brothers, since that time have created their mission statements, the whole work about housing first. And now here they come again with this unhoused, the houseless, because they're throwing you off track on purpose. You'll never house these people. Never. Not in our society. When I hear people say, I got jobs for homeless people, I'm going to tell you something about homeless mentality and jobs. There's a cat in the corner. Every morning he's there at 7 o'clock. Will work for food to get that donation. That's a political correct speech. I will work for food. One day you drive up, pull up on him and say, hey, man, here's $20, man. But look here. I got a place for you to stay. I got this garage, and I got this job for you. And it's going to pay you $25 an hour. And I'll pick you up tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. My brothers, guess who won't be there tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock? He ain't going to be there. Why? Because he realizes you're trying to trick him back into the very same thing that drove him into the streets in the first place. You see, what has effectively happened is that the socialists have been able to create a dynamic and a narrative that makes all homeless people mentally ill, lazy, no good, shiftless, drug addicts, alcoholics, and therefore worthy to be eliminated. You see, this was exactly the way Nazi Germany came into existence. And the Jews didn't even say nothing about it when they started taking the mentally ill and the street vermin like rats away. And ironically, even though I supported this man 3 times in the election, but yet I'm the only man in the country that challenges him on this. Maxine Waters doesn't, the Black and Racial Caucus doesn't, the ACLU, no one challenges. Donald Trump said on July 27, 2022, 9 days after he had a conversation with the top staff in the White House with Joe Biden, he came out and he said, I'm going to use the military to resolve homelessness, because he cloaked homelessness. It was his first speech after leaving the White House. He went to something called the America's Conservative Think Tank, America First Conservative Think Tank. Everybody in Washington, from the congressional leaders to the Pentagon, the corporate leaders, they listened intently to what this man had to say. It was entitled "The Rise of Crime in America," and it was about black people being shown a lot in the news committing crimes. And so what he did was he put homelessness in the middle of that, which it is a crime. It is a crime. It is a crime. That I agree with. I said it all the way from the beginning, but that's the trap. That's the trap. So what he's going to do, he said, I will fix it. I'm going to take him away in one day. Now, I said 40 years ago, I said, I see what y'all are up to. You're going to wait until homelessness becomes so pervasive in every neighborhood and community that when the military comes to take them away, there'll be very little protest. I see what you're doing. And I told them the only way out of it, President's executive order, open up federal lands, build new housing for homeless and non-homeless together. They rejected it. 40 years later, we're looking at it. Now, everybody wants the homeless gone. The storefront owners, corporate people, school districts, neighborhoods, real estate brokers, property owners, the police, fire department. The homeless are 40% of the burdens and the expense of the fire department. The EMT wasn't gone. Everybody wants the homeless gone. Homeless want gone, but they have nowhere legally to go. Run tape forward. So therefore, with all of that in mind, thank God, the group from Dallas and so forth, our group, Brad, I was planning to teach them the strategy of getting the seat in the White House, where I'm homeless servant czar, and in our group called the Civilian Oversight Participants, who will oversee me, make sure that my black ass behave myself properly when I do sit down with these people to negotiate what it is we expect of them. I was going to explain to them how we need to take down usage, the Interagency Council on the Homeless, because they're the ones who's the problem to the president. And then I found out shortly thereafter from Rhonda, she told me to look into it, and looked into it and found out that Trump had put usage to sleep. Now, what we're doing, this group that we're building with the people from Eaton, what we're doing is we're saying to the president, rightly so, we applaud your closing of usage. We've been saying it for 40 years, they're useless. However, we will take the place of usage. We will run usage. This group, the civilian oversight participants, we will run this thing for you, and we'll do it without money. You let the billionaire, Elon Musk, do good things for America without pay. We're saying the same thing. Well, Ted, where are you going to get the money? Sir, we're going to get it from your cabinet. All these billionaires on your cabinet, they're going to make the first investment in a business plan. Then you and they are going to go to Wall Street, and you're going to encourage Wall Street brokers and investors and capital ventures to invest in our plan. New Frontier 2, what is that? Built on the 1862 Homestead Act, we're opening up a new frontier of federal land. With that new frontier comes a renaissance in architecture, construction, digital information, marketing, corporations, manufacturing coming back, but being labor intensive nonetheless. That is my personal policy, to make it sure that it's labor intensive. All that comes back. And that becomes the foundation, Mr. President, of your vision, your correct vision, America's golden age. But the golden age, sir, cannot happen as long as these people are forgotten at the bottom. And we're going to show you, in your interest, in your legacy, and all the people on your cabinet, how you can now really have a golden age of America, because you have reached down and alleviated the suffering of those who are on the bottom of our society. That's what we're asking you, sir. But that's why I say homeless, because homelessness, you know what, let me tell you something else about this business of homelessness. I was on, I think I told you this before, on Dr. Drew Pinsky's radio show on KBC, middle of the day. And he understood us as being pioneers. We are pioneers of the 21st century future. He got that correct. But he was apoplectic about mental illness among the homeless and drug abuse or drug addiction and so forth. And he says, we need to build more programs. I said, sir, I get it. Rehabilitation, absolutely. But what are you going to rehabilitate them back to? The same thing that drove them in? I said, sir, when you talk about drug addiction and alcohol addiction, which are both multi-billion-dollar industries, as well as the recovery system behind that, I said, that's not homeless people. That's y'all. All y'all making money, run your business, that's y'all. And I said, when you talk about mental illness, I said, sir, the psychotropic drug industry, prescribed drug industry, is billions of dollars. That's not for homeless. That's for y'all. So that you can have a level mind to continue to make money. And I said, sir, the stress, I'm not blaming you for this. It's not your fault. I'm saying the stress of your life, the stress is what's driving people downward. And no matter how many houses we build, if we don't address that state of mind, which comes from the top, the people at the top. As Maxine Waters said, homelessness is the ultimate statement of what's wrong with society. Stop beating up on these people. Focus on the root, as John the Baptist said. Lady, axe to the root. That's where the problem is. And until that is addressed, you can forget about helping or housing the homeless. And please don't make the mistake, y'all. Oh, by the way, he never had me back on the show no more because basically I called him. I said that he was mentally ill because I said when someone runs from a house, from a burning house, and people are outside on the sidewalk yelling, you know, like police and social services. No, go back inside. I said that's insanity. It's mental illness. So he didn't have me back on the show no more because he's anyway. The point is, I forgot my last point. But nonetheless, that's all houseless and homelessness and all that. So all the crimes, most of the crimes in America are not committed by the people out on the sidewalks. Crimes in America are committed by people who live in houses. So when we say we want to get the homeless housed because that's the answer to homelessness, that's a deep flaw that I cannot and will not accept anymore. So that's my basic spiel, brother.